So the UK house prices increased in what? They increased. Did I say that right? Yes, apparently. House prices, yes, indeed, increased in February 2023. I'm confused, aren't you? Check out this video as we go through those details. Hi everyone, my name is Simon Misiewicz from Optimise Accountants. In this video we're going to be talking about the UK house prices, and indeed we're talking about house prices that have increased in February 2023. What am I talking about? Surely there is a 50% crash coming, isn't there? That's what a lot of people are commenting on our channel, so they must be right? Well, let's go into this. So what I would say from the beginning is that the only prime data I'm going to be ever referring to is the Office of National Statistics. And I know people are talking about it's out of date, and I know people are talking about there's other YouTubers saying that there's other references more important. They're wrong. There isn't any other better source of information than Office of National Statistics, no matter how upset you get or they get. It is just the facts, because it is based on the national database of all house sales. So we'll get onto Halifax and nationwide in a second, but the house prices are for December 2022, which is a lag, I get that, and it's frustrating, that the average house price was 294,000, and we'll talk about that shortly. Now, the Nationwide came out recently with their report for February 2023, and there's a lot of being said in YouTube about this, that the monthly change was down 0.5% from January. The annual change is minus 1.1%. I told you, Simon, there's a crash of 50% coming. I mean, it's not 50%, is it? But, you know, that's what people are saying. And the average house prices went from January 2023 from 258,297 in their Nationwide report to 257,406. And there was a lot of emphasis upon that. And I've often said that these reports are okay. That's it. They're okay. I'll explain more about that in a second. But Halifax came out for their February 23 report and said house prices is 285,000, which, by the way, is a huge difference from the 257,000 from Nationwide. Why? I'll talk about that later too. The monthly change is 1.1%. Everyone's saying there's a price crash of 50% coming on. I don't get that. And annual change is 2.1%. Different to the minus 1.1 from the Nationwide, which people are commenting on, saying that another YouTuber is saying that there's a price crash coming. What are you talking about, Simon? I'm just pulling information from Halifax, actually. Anyway, so let's think about this. Why is there such a difference between Nationwide and Halifax? It's simply this, that they are using information from their own data sources. So the number of house products that are on their portfolio for mortgages and whatever else they're using. Okay, so it's not looking at the Nationwide. And how can it be? Because if we look at this report here, this is now comparing the Office of National Statistics to Halifax to Nationwide. And you can see if we look at October, November, December, all those numbers are different. Why? Because Halifax and Nationwide are using their own data sources, and it's not the national average. So people putting so much emphasis on Nationwide and Halifax are creating a rod for their own back, making informed decisions about something that is, quite frankly, is up to date, but wrong. I'll say it's wrong, because it's only looking at their data set. It's not looking at the nation as a whole. And I know I'm going to have some comeback from you on this, but the reality is the reality. So whatever distortion field that people are in, looking at Nationwide saying, well, it's a minus 1.1%, the doom and gloom, I told you it's 50% negative. No, it's not. Halifax have come out and said it's 2.1% increase from last year. So how does that work? What we will know is whether the Office of National Statistics in January, February say that there is genuine being a loss or a decline. That if there's a decline in those months, then absolutely we need to look at that. By the way, I'm not saying that property prices will go up 10-15%. I've been all the way saying I kind of expect to see that property prices will go down 10%, because are we in recession or are we not in recession? Apparently we're not in recession, but there is definitely a financial impact here. And the banks are doing things with the interest rates. Again, I'll come on to that. Why I still think property prices will come down. But I just want you to all realize that people coming out on YouTube channels saying it's this, it's that, without really comparing and making comparisons of other data sets, I think it's just wrong, in all honesty. So this is the Halifax. Please feel free to pause this video and look at that data set in terms of what their house price indexes have been over the last few months. What you'll see is monthly change that they're saying is increased by 1% every month. So that's really interesting. I personally, from a national perspective, I don't think that's correct. From a Halifax data set, it is correct, of course, because it's their data. What's important to know about this, again, we talk about the national average house price. So in Scotland, for instance, they're having a negative between 1.5% to 2%, if not slightly more, decline. If we look at Wales, for instance, they're still increasing property prices. And I know that Northern Ireland is still doing relatively well. It says 0.5% on this graph, but I can see that there's data sources saying other information to say that it's increasing in value. So I think, again, we need to look at this whole data set and say, well, let's put this into perspective of where we are seeing these property changes. But I'll be delighted to see your views. Where are you seeing property prices fall? Where are you seeing property price increase? Because it inevitably will do. I do this kind of video update in the US, and it's amazing that some states are increasing value. Florida, for instance, compared to other states where they are declining quite significantly. But back to the UK, of course. House volumes, Office of National Statistics say that volumes of house sales have declined in 21 and in 2022 compared to 18, 19, 20. That's inevitable because right now, if you're an investor, then your buy-to-let mortgage rates will be higher. If you're a homeowner and you want to buy a new home, you are going to have to pay more interest rates to the banks. So it doesn't make sense for you to buy a property if interest rates are so high. You're better to stick around, or are you, depending on your situation. Now, Trading Economics came out with this report about forecasting of where they think house prices will come up. This is a data set from, funny enough, Halifax and Bank of Scotland. Now, they've predicted that house prices will go up in January 2023 all the way up to July 2023 and then back down again in 2024. But if you see the blue shade, it's still going up in value. So where's this 50% crash coming from? I think people are making emotional decisions and outbursts of rage, talking about there's a crash. I can't see it personally. I could see certainly a price correction. And again, whether that's 10%, whether that's 15%, I'm still thinking 10%, but I can easily see why people think it's 15%. I'm not sure I agree with it, but I can certainly see justification for it. So we need to bear in mind that all of this situation about the economy is affected by personal house income. The first one is the money charity. So the money charity, they focus on a lot of data set. Very good website. I recommend you look at it. And what I want to focus on is inflation, unsecured debt, and credit card balances. Why? Because if you've got increasing inflation, it means people have less money because fuel and food is going up, which clearly inflation is still 10.1%, so it's still high. But unsecured debt means if those balances are increasing, then inevitably they are struggling to make ends meet. They're using the credit cards, whatever, to live. But those balances are not going up right now. So are we expecting foreclosures? Are we expecting people to have to sell their homes because of credit card balances and loans? Not right now. That's not what this picture is telling me, at least. But again, interested in your views about that one. Bank of England interest rate is currently 4%, but we know that the interest rate is going to be going up anytime soon. So that could be 4.25, maybe 4.5%, maybe higher. Now, interest rates means that there's going to be greater interest payments to be made, house affordability goes down, and there could be economic issues for families. And I get that. And that's where people might need to cut back on things like luxury items, cars, holidays, maintenance of cars. I saw that as also a thing that's had to go by the wayside, which is quite frightening because you need to maintain your vehicles to survive, really, when you're going on journeys. So, but if interest rates goes up, then clearly there's going to be an impact. Will they go up? look, the United States are saying that interest rates will go up by another 0.5%. They've released a report just recently. I've just done the US housing updates for that. Forecast is saying that it's going up by 0.5%. We will follow it inevitably, because last time we didn't, the currency took a hammering. So we can't allow that to happen again. We have to follow suit. So if it goes up to 4.5%, I wouldn't be surprised at all. All right, so unemployment. People have been saying on this channel, well, there's unemployment going up and, people are losing their jobs. That's not what this is saying. The unemployment rates are still low. In fact, if we look at 2021, that was when unemployment was more than 5%. But actually, there's a lot of people, like us, by the way, are looking for accountants. So if you're a qualified accountant, feel free to drop me a line and we might have a job for you, because we are needing to recruit. There are a lot of firms that I know are looking to recruit. So there is this misconception that there is an economic crisis in business. I don't see it personally. And indeed, looking across upon the US, they're saying that there's a lot of recruitment going on, which takes away this whole thing about unemployment. But again, time will tell. But right now, I just think people are just thinking, well, they're assuming a lot of incorrect information and then interpreting it in the wrong way. Again, just going back to hardcore data, unemployment is not going up right now. However, I have to caveat this. So what they are predicting, that unemployment rates will go up. Now, we're currently about 3.7%. Now, they're saying that it will go up to 5%. Now, for a crisis in the economy, 5% unemployment, albeit bad, is not a crisis in itself. People will not be throwing their keys to their homes just because of the 5% unemployment. It means that there will be fewer jobs around for sure. But does that mean there's an economic crisis? No. Is there going to be a situation whereby it's going to be difficult for those people? Of course. I'm not stupid. Everyone knows that if you lose your job, you will have no savings if you're using credit cards. That you'll be in a difficult financial position. But that doesn't mean that the housing market will collapse, because we're talking about 5% of the population, not 95% of the population. And again, people are saying that unemployment is going to have a significant impact on housing, not at 5%. And this really backs that up, actually. I've used the information from UK Finance. Again, feel free to use this. This is mortgage arrears and repossessions. And what I've done here is compared data. They do it on a quarterly. So August 2022 compared to February 2023. Arrears, 75,170, lower than before. Significant arrears, 28,390, lower than before. House repossessions, 500, about the same. Buy-to-let repossessions, 320, about the same. Where is this housing crisis coming from? And all people throwing their keys in? It's not happening. There's no data to support any of that whatsoever. So I don't see that there's going to be a housing crisis based on any of this information. But again, if you have data sources, please do share that with me. Don't just come on this channel and say, I think you're wrong because this, without really backing it up. I know people have done that, and I just feel that we've just got to just calm down a little bit in terms of the data that's being shared by other YouTubers, and critique it and say, look, where is this information coming from that you're talking about there's going to be a housing crisis of 30-40%? I've seen some people talk about that on YouTube, and it's creating hysteria, it's creating panic and fear, and I just think it's wrong to create that without real logical information on our hand. That's all.